The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was larger than most cities. Hundreds of floating platforms circled a bright central stage, each filled with representatives from different worlds. Some were tall and thin like walking branches. Others were covered in smooth shells or glowing skin. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy sent someone to this event. It was the night of the annual planetary index. Every year, the Council studied thousands of inhabited worlds. They ranked them for science, culture, economy, and safety. Most species watched the event with excitement. A high ranking meant trade, tourism, and prestige. But there was one category that always made the room go silent. Most terrifying planet. No civilization ever wanted that title. It was usually given to worlds that were almost impossible to survive on. Planets where gravity crushed visitors, or oceans were filled with predators, or storms could destroy entire cities. Winning that category meant one thing. Stay away. The lights dimmed across the hall. The central sphere above the stage began to glow as the results appeared. The council speaker, an old being named Viral, floated forward. The final classification will now be announced, Viral said calmly. Around the hall, translators repeated the words in hundreds of languages. The crowd waited. The screen showed images of dangerous worlds from across the galaxy. Planets with toxic clouds. Planets where lightning storms never stopped. Planets where the surface temperature could melt metal. Everyone expected one of those names to appear. Instead, a blue world slowly rotated onto the screen. A planet covered in water and green land. Earth. For a moment, the hall was completely silent. Then confusion spread through the crowd. Several delegates leaned forward, checking their displays. Others whispered to each other. The result could not be correct. Earth was classified as a developing interstellar civilization. Its technology was impressive, but not unusual compared to older species. It had trade networks, research stations, and diplomatic relations. But terrifying? The screen updated again. Most terrifying planet, Earth. A second line appeared beneath it. Highest terror index ever recorded. The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed across the hall. One insect-like delegate dropped the data tablet it was holding. Another species began rapidly tapping calculations into its console. This must be an error, someone said. But the council computers did not make mistakes. The numbers had already been checked dozens of times. Earth had received a terror score far beyond any planet previously studied. The council speaker raised a hand for silence. The results have been verified, Viral announced. More whispers spread through the chamber. What makes that world so dangerous? Is there a hidden predator species? Did their environment change recently? None of the delegates had expected this outcome. Across the galaxy, news networks quickly began broadcasting the result. On space stations, on colony worlds, on research vessels drifting through deep space. Everywhere, people asked the same question. Why Earth? But the strangest reaction did not come from aliens. It came from Earth itself. Within minutes, the news reached the planet's global communication networks. At first, humans thought it was a joke. Social media filled with confused comments. Wait, we won. Most terrifying planet? Seriously. Then the memes started. Images of smiling humans standing beside dangerous animals. Pictures of mountain climbers waving at the camera. Videos of storms and volcanoes with captions like, "Just a normal Tuesday." Late-night talk shows joked about it. One host laughed and said, "I guess the galaxy finally noticed our weather." Another joked, "Does this mean we get a trophy?" Across Earth, the mood was relaxed. Humans celebrated the title like it was something funny. Some people even started printing shirts that said, "Terrifying Planet Resident." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the delegates watched these broadcasts in disbelief. "They are celebrating," one observer said slowly. Another delegate replayed a video of humans laughing about the award. They do not appear concerned. The council speaker stared at the data. Report again. The numbers were clear. Earth's gravity was far higher than most inhabited worlds. Its oceans held enormous predators. Its storms were violent and unpredictable. Its surface constantly changed through earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Thousands of species on that planet could kill a visitor, yet the dominant species, humans, did not seem afraid of any of it. The council had expected panic. Instead, they found humor. One delegate asked a question that was now on every mind. How can they laugh? The council speaker closed the report slowly, because a deeper analysis explained something even more unsettling. Earth was not terrifying because life struggled to survive there. Earth was terrifying because one species had evolved in that chaos and somehow learned to call home. The Galactic Council chamber remained restless long after the announcement. Delegates continued whispering, arguing, and checking the data reports again and again. Many believed the results had to be wrong. Earth could not possibly be the most terrifying planet in the galaxy. The council speaker, Viral, signaled for silence. Council scientists will now explain the findings, Viral said calmly. A large display sphere rose above the center of the chamber. Images of Earth slowly rotated in the air. A tall scientist from the research division stepped forward. His species had smooth silver skin and long, careful fingers that moved across a floating control panel. The terror score assigned to Earth was calculated using several environmental factors, he began. The screen changed, showing numbers and images. First, planetary gravity. A graph appeared beside an image of Earth. Earth's gravity is significantly stronger than the average habitable world in our records, the scientist explained. Most advanced species evolved on planets with lower gravitational force. For many species, simply standing on Earth will be physically exhausting. Several delegates murmured in surprise. The screen shifted again. Second, atmospheric instability. Images of violent storms appeared. Hurricanes spinning across oceans. Lightning storms stretching across entire continents. Earth's atmosphere regularly produces extreme weather events, the scientist continued. Storm systems on this planet can destroy cities, flood entire regions, and generate winds strong enough to lift heavy vehicles. Another screen appeared. Third, biological threats. Images began flashing across the display. Large predators running through forests. Venomous creatures hidden in sand. Massive sharks moving through deep oceans. Earth contains thousands of predator species capable of killing a human or visiting organism, the scientist said. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. And that is only the beginning, the scientist added. The display changed again. Extreme temperature ranges. Images showed frozen polar regions covered in ice. Then deserts where the ground shimmered with heat. Earth's surface temperatures vary widely, he said. Some regions are cold enough to freeze organic tissue within minutes. Others are hot enough to cause rapid dehydration. Another image appeared. Geological instability. The display showed volcanoes erupting and earthquakes cracking the ground. The planet's crust is divided into massive moving plates, the scientist explained. These plates constantly shift, causing earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and the formation of entire mountain ranges. Many delegates stared at the screen in shock. Several worlds in the galaxy had one or two of these dangers, but Earth had all of them, at once. The scientist paused. But environmental danger alone did not produce Earth's extreme terror rating, he said. The screen went dark for a moment. Then a single word appeared. Humans. The chamber grew quiet. The scientists turned back toward the delegates. The dominant species of Earth evolved within this environment. Images began appearing again. Early humans walking across open plains. Groups of humans building fires and tools. Homo sapiens developed in a world where survival required constant adaptation, the scientist said. Instead of avoiding danger, they learned to confront it. A new image appeared. A large wolf sitting beside a human. Humans domesticated predators. Another image appeared. Large cities rising from dry desert landscapes. They built permanent settlements in harsh climates. The next image showed a small wooden ship crossing a vast ocean. They traveled across oceans filled with creatures larger than their vessels. The chamber filled with quiet murmurs again. But the scientist continued. What alarms the council most, he said slowly, is not simply that humans survive these dangers. The screen changed again. A group of humans climbed a massive mountain covered in snow. Humans voluntarily seek them. Another image appeared. divers swimming in the deep ocean. Then another, vehicles racing across tracks at incredible speed. Then another, explorers standing near an active volcano. These activities are not required for survival, the scientist explained. They are recreational. A ripple of disbelief moved through the chamber. One delegate leaned forward. You are saying they choose to do this? It asked. Yes, the scientist replied. They climb mountains that can kill them. They dive into oceans deeper than many alien cities. They race machines at dangerous speeds. They explore the most hostile environments on their world. And they do this for enjoyment. Several delegates stared at the images in silence. To most species in the galaxy, survival meant avoiding danger. But humans seem to treat danger like a challenge. One delegate finally spoke. This behavior is irrational. The scientist paused before answering. Perhaps. But it has also made humans extremely adaptable. The display returned to the image of Earth. Ours is a galaxy filled with many environments, the scientist said. Most civilizations evolve in stable conditions, but humans evolve in chaos. The chamber grew quiet again, which means, the scientist finished, that humans are comfortable in places where other species would panic. The council speaker slowly looked around the room. For the first time, many delegates began to understand the deeper reason behind the ranking. Earth was not terrifying only because it was dangerous. It was terrifying because a species had evolved there and somehow learned to enjoy it. The decision to investigate Earth was made quickly after the shocking results of the planetary index. Many members of the Galactic Council believed something was missing from the data. Numbers and images could only show so much. If Earth truly deserved the title of the most terrifying planet, the Council wanted to see it with their own eyes. A small diplomatic observation team was selected. They were not soldiers. They were scientists, environmental specialists, and cultural researchers. Their task was simple: visit Earth, observe human life, and confirm whether the species truly understood how dangerous their world was. The transport vessel arrived in Earth's orbit 2 weeks later. From space, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans covered most of the surface, and white clouds drifted slowly across the continents. It appears calm, said Investigator Thero, the leader of the mission. That is likely misleading, another researcher replied. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere and landed near a human research center located beside a large forest. The alien team stepped out carefully. Earth's gravity immediately felt heavy compared to their home worlds. Several members adjusted the stabilizers in their suits to compensate. A group of humans waited near the landing platform. They wore simple clothing and smiled as the visitors approached. Welcome to Earth, one of them said warmly. Her name was Dr. Elena Ramirez, a scientist assigned to guide the observers during their visit. The aliens studied the environment around them. Tall trees surrounded the research station. Birds moved through the branches. Wind pushed gently through the leaves. It seemed peaceful, but according to the council reports, this forest contained many dangerous animals. One of the observers looked toward the trees nervously. Are there predators nearby? He asked. Dr. Ramirez nodded casually. Probably. The alien paused. You say that very calmly. She shrugged slightly. They usually avoid people. The group began walking along a dirt path that led deeper into the forest. The observers scanned the surroundings constantly. Their instruments detected movement, animal sounds, and shifting temperatures. Every signal reminded them that they were standing inside a natural ecosystem filled with unknown creatures. Yet the humans walked without concern. After several minutes, they reached a wide clearing. There, something unexpected was happening. Children were playing. Several human children ran across the grass, while others kicked the ball back and forth. Their laughter echoed through the trees. One of the observers stopped walking. They allow their young outside? He asked quietly. Dr. Ramirez looked confused. Of course. But the forest contains predators. Yeah, she said, but we keep an eye on things. The alien researchers watched in silence as the children continued playing without fear. Later that day, the observers were taken to a nearby mountain park. Humans were climbing steep trails toward the snowy peaks above. Some carried heavy equipment. Others simply walked with small backpacks. They are traveling toward the colder region voluntarily? Another observer asked. Yes, Ramirez replied. People like hiking. Hiking? Walking in nature. Good exercise. The aliens looked at the distant mountain slopes. Temperatures there were dangerously low, yet humans climbed them for enjoyment. The next stop surprised them even more. The team visited a coastal engineering facility where humans were building machines designed to operate in violent ocean storms. Massive vessels stood in dry docks while engineers tested powerful engines and reinforced hulls. These ships are made to enter hurricanes, Ramirez explained. One of the observers stared at the ocean waves crashing against the shore. You send people into those storms? Sometimes, she said. The alien slowly shook his head. That evening, the team visited a scientific laboratory studying volcanic activity. Large screens showed live images of glowing lava flowing down the side of a distant volcano. A human technician adjusted the monitoring equipment. One of the observers spoke nervously. Is it safe to work this close to such geological instability? The technician laughed softly. Well, safe enough. The alien team exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Investigator Thero asked a question that had been on everyone's mind. Dr. Ramirez, he said carefully, do humans fully understand how dangerous this planet is? She looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled. Yeah, she said simply. That's why we got good at surviving. The observers stood quietly. Throughout their visit, they had expected to see fear. They expected to see humans constantly fighting their environment. But instead, they had seen something completely different. Humans were relaxed, comfortable, confident. They built homes in deserts. They explored mountains and oceans. They studied storms instead of hiding from them. As the sun began to set behind the forest, Investigator Thero slowly looked across the landscape. For the first time, he understood something unsettling. Humans were not terrified of their world. They had learned to live with it. And after thousands of years, they had mastered it. The observation team stayed on Earth longer than they had first planned. At the beginning, their mission was simple. They only needed to observe human life and confirm the data collected by the Council. But the more they watched, the more questions they had. Earth was dangerous. That much was clear. Their instruments constantly recorded environmental risks. Storm systems formed quickly over the oceans. Temperature changes were sudden in some regions. Wildlife moved through forests and oceans with strength and speed. Yet the humans living on this planet behaved very differently from what the observers expected. One morning, Investigator Thero received an emergency alert from a human communication network. A massive storm had formed over the ocean and was moving toward a coastal city. The alien team gathered in the research station control room to watch the situation unfold. On the large screens, dark clouds covered the horizon. Wind speeds were increasing rapidly, and heavy rain had already begun flooding several areas. This storm appears extremely dangerous, one observer said. Dr. Ramirez nodded. Yeah, it's a big one. The aliens expected to see evacuation ships leaving the region immediately. Instead, something surprising happened. Large aircraft lifted off from nearby bases and flew directly into the storm. The observers stared at the screen. They are moving toward the storm, one of them said slowly. Ramirez nodded again. Rescue teams. The aircraft carried trained pilots and emergency crews. Their mission was to find people trapped in flooded areas and bring them to safety. The winds outside were violent. Lightning flashed across the sky. Visibility was almost zero. Yet the rescue teams continued flying. They are risking their lives, another observer said. Yes, Ramirez replied calmly. Why? She looked at the screen for a moment. Because someone out there needs help. The room fell quiet as the aircraft continued their mission. Over the next few hours, dozens of people were rescued from rooftops, damaged buildings, and flooded streets. The alien observers watched every moment. Later that week, the team visited a volcanic research station. The volcano was active. Streams of glowing lava slowly flowed down the dark slopes of the mountain. Thick smoke drifted into the sky. Even standing at a safe distance, the heat could be felt. Human scientists moved carefully around monitoring equipment placed near the edge of the volcanic zone. One observer looked at the glowing lava with unease. "This area could become unstable at any moment," he said. A human geologist nearby nodded. "Yeah, that's always possible." The alien blinked in confusion. "And you remain here anyway?" The geologist smiled slightly. "We need to understand how it works." He adjusted one of the sensors and wrote down several measurements. "Studying volcanoes helps us predict eruptions and keep people safe." The observers continued recording everything they saw. During their final days on Earth, another event changed their understanding even further. A powerful earthquake struck a distant region. Buildings were damaged, roads cracked, entire neighborhoods lost electricity. The alien team watched the situation unfold through the global news network. They expected panic, but what they saw was something else entirely. Emergency workers arrived quickly. Medical teams set up temporary stations. Engineers began repairing damaged infrastructure within hours. Volunteers from nearby cities traveled to help complete strangers. People shared food, water, and supplies. Instead of chaos, there was cooperation. Instead of fear, there was determination. Investigator Thero stood silently in the observation room, watching the response. Finally he spoke. "They do not collapse under danger," he said quietly. Dr. Ramirez shook her head. "No," she replied. "We work together." Several days later, the observation mission ended. The alien team returned to their vessel and began the journey back to the Galactic Council. During the trip, they prepared their final report. When they arrived at the council chamber, hundreds of delegates gathered to hear their findings. Many still believed the terror rating of Earth had been exaggerated. Investigator Thero stepped forward. "The council's data was correct," he began. Images from the mission appeared on the large display above the chamber. Storms, volcanoes, wildlife, harsh environments. "Yes, Earth is a dangerous planet," he continued. "But the environment alone is not what makes it terrifying." The delegates leaned forward. "The true reason is the species that lives there." New images appeared. Human rescue teams flying through storms. Scientists studying volcanic eruptions. Volunteers helping communities rebuild after disasters. "Humans do not simply survive their world," Thero said. "They thrive within it." A quiet murmur spread through the chamber. Any species capable of evolving in such conditions must possess extraordinary resilience. He paused before speaking the final conclusion. "If humans can conquer their own world," the large image of Earth slowly rotated above the hall, "then they could adapt almost anywhere in the galaxy." For the first time since the award announcement, the delegates understood. Earth was not terrifying because of its storms, predators, or volcanoes. Earth was terrifying because the species that lived there had learned to face every one of those dangers and keep moving forward. Several weeks after the investigation team returned, the Galactic Council gathered once again in the Great Assembly Hall. This time the room felt different. The confusion and doubt that had filled the chamber earlier had been replaced with something else: respect. The council had reviewed the full report from the observation mission many times. Every recording, every environmental measurement, every cultural note had been studied carefully. The conclusion was now clear. Earth had not been misclassified. The title was correct. The council speaker, Viral, prepared the official message that would be sent to Earth. It was important that the humans understood the meaning behind the award. Across the galaxy, the title Most Terrifying Planet had never been a joke. It was a warning label used by explorers and travelers. Planets that received that classification were usually avoided. But Earth was different. Earth had produced a civilization that had learned to live with constant danger and still grow stronger. The council message was transmitted across interstellar space and arrived at Earth several days later. The broadcast was received by the United Earth Diplomatic Office, and soon the message was shared with news networks around the world. People everywhere were curious. Why had the galaxy chosen Earth? And what exactly did the council mean by most terrifying planet? Soon after, a public conference was organized between the Galactic Council and Earth's representatives. Journalists from many human networks gathered in a large conference hall. Cameras pointed toward the stage where the human ambassador stood beside a large screen displaying the council's message. Ambassador Daniel Carter was an older man with calm eyes and a relaxed posture. He had spent many years working with alien diplomats. The message from the council appeared on the screen behind him. It explained everything. The award was never meant as an insult. It was recognition. Earth had one of the most dangerous natural environments ever recorded among advanced civilizations. Its storms, wildlife, geological activity, and climate extremes made it one of the harshest planets capable of supporting life. Yet humans had not only survived there. They had built cities, explored the oceans, crossed deserts, and reached space. The message ended with a statement from the Council. Earth has produced a species with extraordinary resilience. A civilization capable of thriving on such a world deserves recognition among the stars. The journalists in the room began raising their hands immediately. One reporter stood up first. "Ambassador Carter," she said, "what does humanity think about being called the most terrifying planet in the galaxy?" The room grew quiet. Everyone waited for his response. Carter looked at the screen behind him, then back toward the reporters. For a moment he said nothing. Then he laughed. Not loudly, but warmly. "Honestly," he said, "we thought it was a compliment." The room filled with quiet laughter. Carter continued speaking. "Earth can be a tough place to live. We deal with storms, earthquakes, wild animals, and all kinds of other problems." He shrugged slightly. "But it's our home. We learn how to deal with it." The conference continued for another hour as reporters asked questions about the council's report. But something else had already begun happening behind the scenes. Several weeks after the message was delivered, new requests started arriving from across the galaxy. Exploration agencies wanted human advisors for missions to dangerous planets. Colonization teams asked for human engineers to help design settlements in harsh climates. Emergency response organizations requested human specialists for disaster rescue operations. At first, many humans were surprised by the sudden interest, but the explanation was simple. The galaxy had studied Earth carefully, and the conclusion was clear. If any species could handle extreme environments, unpredictable weather, and dangerous ecosystems, it was the one that had evolved on Earth. Months later, a young alien explorer preparing for a mission to a harsh frontier world asked one of his instructors a question. "Why are humans leading the expedition?" he asked. The instructor pointed toward a screen displaying images of Earth. Storms moving across oceans. Volcanoes glowing in the night. Mountains covered in snow. "Because," the instructor said quietly, "they grew up on a world like that." The young explorer looked at the images again. For the first time, he understood why the Council had given Earth its title. The planet itself was dangerous, but the species that lived there was something even more remarkable. They had not just survived their terrifying world. They had learned to call it normal.